I heard a story earlier today that I thought was really cool. It's not like a funny story, but I just thought it was fucking like badass. I was talking to a mate of mine, and we were talking about like the credit crunch from 2008, and like when the world kind of fell apart and like Northern Rock collapsed, and who's the other one that collapsed? It was Northern Rock and someone else. Anyway, when the fucking credit crunch was happening, and you know, all the banks were like on the verge of collapsing, and it was this crazy pandemonium. And he said to me that one of his dads, his dad went to, I'm not going to say the bank or anything. But
one of his dads?
No, sorry. His dad went to his bank.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say which bank, but it was one of the major banks. And he went to his
Santander.
bank. He went to his bank. I'm not going to tell you which bank.
I know.
He went to his bank, and basically he was in the process of they'd sold their last house and they were about to buy their like next house. So he had like 700 grand or something in the bank. And so it was only in there temporarily until they found the new place or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was like, you know, all their money. And he went to the bank and at some random branch, and the woman was just who was working behind the thing was just like, yeah, no, sorry, you can't withdraw it. This bank wasn't actually collapsing, but it was like all the shit was hitting the fan, and it was like they didn't know how it was going to play out.
Yeah.
So he was like, hey, I want to take out my money, and they were like, no, you can't do that. But what they didn't know is he worked in finance, and he actually had done work with that bank.
Okay.
And so he was like clued up on the legalities of things. And so somehow or another, he ended up getting on the phone with the COO of that bank.
Okay.
And we're talking like a major bank, like HSBC, NatWest, Lloyds,
Barclays,
Barclays, like a top bank.
Yeah.
This guy from this branch, some random branch, is on the phone with the COO of the bank. And he's basically saying to him, like, he's somehow wiggled his way up to speak to people, being like, I've worked here, I know this, try and call this, whatever. And somehow he gets through the COO, and the COO is like, look, I'm sorry, you know, there's nothing we can do. And he was basically like, right, if you're not taking out my money, it's because you obviously like don't have the money. If you don't have the money, that means you're going into liquidation. And if you're going into liquidation, but you're aware of it, but you haven't actually announced or declared liquidation, that means that you're basically trading on information when you should be in administration. And he threw all these like massive terms at him.
Yeah,
and he was like, and against the FCA, you know, compliance, that doesn't mean X, Y, Z, and Z, and Z. And so he's like, you better give me my money now, because if you don't, then I'm going to, you know, fucking, you know, break it. And even though the bank wasn't about to go into liquidation, if he had broken that news, that could have caused people to think they were going into liquidation. That could have then made everyone sell, which then actually potentially could have put them into liquidation.
Yeah.
So they were just like, all right. And they just gave him his money in cash. And he just walked out with like 700 grand in cash. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. But it's just crazy that he walked into his bank at some random branch and was like, hey, I want my money. And they're like, nah, you can't have it. And then
some shit high street branch.
And then next thing you know, he's like, no, I want to speak to this person. Now you got to put me to this person, connect to
and
this.
And he walks out with
and he gets through the
cash.
fucking one of the top 3 people of the company, top 2 people of the company, and ends up walking out with 700 grand in cash.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But it's also, it made me think, like, baller story and like, what a gangster move.
Yeah, that is.
To be like, you're giving me my fucking money.
You could almost make a movie out of that.
100%. Although you could make a scene out of it. You can't really make a whole movie out of it, because it's like, this one scene, it's like he goes into the bank and he gets his money.
Yeah, but there are movies where they do it in like fucking, you know, they set a whole movie over like an hour or whatever in real time.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah,
you could do it. I mean, I'm not saying it'd be a great movie, but you could there's definitely a story there.
Yeah, I could see that being over the case of an hour. That's some sort of finance movie. I'm a big enough finance nerd that I would watch that.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
But anyway, what's crazy though is that we were just talking about that period in time and just how insane it was that like there was a period where you could just go into your bank and be like, hey, I want my money. And they're like, nah. You're like, what?
It's scary.
Yeah. Pensions were wiped out.
Especially when you think about your average Joe's knowledge of the whole system, banking system, including me, is literally nothing. Like, I don't even really understand how all that shit works. So it's like, you just think of the bank as this magical place to hold your money, but you know,
my mate
there's
made
a system to it.
My mate, when he was telling me that story earlier today, he made a point that I thought was really funny and really astute, because I hadn't realized that I think about it the same way. But he was like, when that happened and those banks that did go under, like Northern Rock and whatever, when they went under and people did lose all their savings, all their money, and like.
So just quickly, because again, I'm not from a place where I would even understand this in the slightest.
Right. A bank is basically a building that like holds your money.
Yeah. I know that. Yeah.
But you need a bank account. So a bank account is basically like you have to have like some way of proving who you are.
And what is money?
So you won't need to worry about that. It's just,
No. So the people that lost everything,
Yeah.
because the bank shut down,
Yeah.
there was no way of
Yeah.
recouping that.
Yeah.
That was it. Because I genuinely
That was
don't know.
it.
That was it.
That was it.
They couldn't sue anyone because the company shut down. It was just you lost your money, all your life savings. That was it.
Gone.
I would I'd genuinely probably go insane and kill people and shit my pants or something. I would do some fucked up shit.
Well, this is the thing. I said to my mate, I was like, because basically the point I was going to make is when we were talking about this, my friend was like, what's crazy is that he was like, when that happened and like, you know, Northern Rock, for example, collapsed and like people just went into the bank and couldn't get their money and then the bank closed and all your life savings are just gone. He was like, when that happened and I realized that's what happened, he was like, that was when I first realized that like, oh, the government isn't like your parents. Because he was like, I always thought about it as like your parents are like, you know, when you're a kid, it's like, okay, if something gets too fucked up, your parents are kind of hopefully the guardrails that like if something goes wrong, they're there to help protect you and steer you and be like, all right, don't worry, look, you know, you got expelled, but we'll put you in another school, or this happened, but we'll put you here. And he's like, I always kind of had in the back of my mind naively that like the government was like that. They're like, yeah, but if someone gets too unfairly fucked over, they're like, no, come on, that's not part of the game. Here you go. And he was like, I don't know why I thought that, but I just had that feeling of like, that's what the government was meant to be. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit, I thought about that too. Like that is kind of the idea that like, if you get royally fucked over, the government goes, no, that's not fair. Hey, you have this. Yeah. But he's like, but then when that happened, I was like, oh, that just doesn't happen. Yeah. And then it's just game over. Yeah. And yeah, to your point, I think if I was one of those people, I think if I was, you know, 45 and
your kids, you've saved this money for your children's future
and the security for what if something I lost my job and that whatever.
I'd be in a straitjacket.
I wouldn't be in a straight. I would just be like, oh, okay, I'm doing crime now. Yeah. Immediately, I'm just like, okay, I played by the rules for 40 years. I got completely fucked over. Yeah. Society did nothing to help me back. I'm gonna be a criminal now.
Just think, if you go into a bank and they're like, oh, I'm sticking the bank up. There must be some cash in the back. You're going to grab it for me. We're doing something here. Yeah. I'm going full like fucking. Where are the gold coins? You know what I mean? Take me back there.
Take me to the
vault. I need something, yeah.